Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode from the brand new series, The Real Hustle Creatives Unplugged. Now, in this series, we talk about challenges and opportunities that creative freelancers in Singapore may face. My name is Laura Key. I'm an actor, host, and voiceover artist, and I've been working in the Singapore media industry since 2008. I'm also an advocate for media workers in Singapore. And for today's episode, we have three guests with us. So, first of all, we have Jean C. She is a Labour nominated Member of Parliament. She's also very passionate about advocating for freelancers' work rights and prospects. We have Kelvin Lee. He is an executive producer with 18 years of experience. He's also very passionate about supporting industry growth, creating a positive, supportive environment for creatives to thrive in Singapore. And of course, last but not least, we have Edward Choy, a very known voice in the industry. He has 25 years of experience as a host, an actor, voiceover artist, acting coach, corporate trainer. He also conducts financial literacy classes for freelancers and graduating students as well. So today we're going to talk about a very interesting topic. I think something that will ignite a lot of discussion. And that's about pricing. Pricing yourself, knowing the market rates, perhaps also knowing how to negotiate. So perhaps we can start with either Kelvin or Edward. Do you want to talk about how do you price your services? Maybe Edward, you want to start?
I think the first thing you need to know is that you have to make sure that if you set a price
Yes.
for your work, it has to be something that will not make you feel like you're disrespecting yourself.
I agree. I think totally you should be happy for getting yourself out of bed for the X amount of dollars. But I also think you have to know talent capability. Like what can you bring to the table? If people say, hey, they want you for a job, for what role and what scope of work, then you obviously give a fair price. Because if you've done it, then yes, you know your level of quality execution bring to the table. But if not, don't cheapen yourself against the other people out there who have been doing that. So I think try to find a common ground, yeah, for sure, yeah.
I'd like to know a little bit more about perhaps pricing models, maybe. Nowadays there's things like hourly rates, right? That people quoting hourly rates and things like that, or daily rates. Is there something that you work with project rates, or perhaps what do you do per job? Kind of decide.
We need to talk about specifically what sort of role we're looking at.
Yeah.
So if you're an actor,
Yeah.
for example, and you give yourself, you give in, and I use that term very specifically, you give in to being given an hourly rate. This means that you are punishing yourself for doing good work. What does that mean? If you do it, you can do it in 2 or 3 takes and you're done early. You've just punished yourself for being good.
You penalize efficiency, essentially, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
On the other hand, should you negotiate for block rate for the whole job, and then you do a good job, great, we finish early. It can't get done, it takes longer, that's fine. We negotiated a block rate, everybody's happy with this. We all do a good job, we stay for as long as it takes to get it done.
But when you talk about block rate, for instance, let's say block rate, right? Do you think that should be a cap on the number of hours, let's say?
I think for most Singaporeans, we would agree that a reasonable number of hours to work per day is 10 hours. Okay, this is not Europe where 7 hours, we're done, Okay, 10 hours in a day. And then after that, you negotiate for an overrun rate. So let's say 10 hours, you negotiate, my rate is $1,000 for those 10 hours. For every hour or part thereof that you overrun, I'll prorate it to $100. There you go. And then we're all set. Everybody's happy. We understand that if we get done in 7, 8 hours, I get paid $1,000. If we get done in 12 hours, I get paid $1,002. And everybody knows, everybody understands, and we're all okay. But you must negotiate it beforehand.
I think the next thing we can talk about is payment milestones. Like when you price yourself, right? And now we talk about late payments and non-payments and things like that. To buffer against that, right? Do either of you institute kind of payment milestones in your projects?
So, the standard has always been 30 days. The weird thing when I tell people who are not freelancers, I tell my friends who are full-time, they have corporate jobs, they're like, huh? You do the job, then they pay you 30 days, 60 days later? Where got such thing one? And so that's fascinating to me. We've accepted it as a norm. But to the rest of the world, it's weird. Why wouldn't you pay for a service that's already been done? So this is something that we know is to the benefit of companies. I used to be a banker.
Yep.
We know that the longer you can roll it, the later you pay us, the better it is for you.
But I'm pretty sure it impacts their cash flow as well down the way, right? If you're
Yeah.
owing people money constantly and you're building it up, you're owing everyone with a 30-day, 60-day term, then the financial stats of the company mustn't be very good
I'm
throughout
gonna
the long term.
I'm gonna pass this over to Kelvin because I know
Let's ask about your
Oh
company.
no. Oh no. Such a tough question. Overview is that I realize this problem happens when the top does not pay the money down. So the client expects
The
credit-
commissioner, the person,
yes,
yes.
the service buyer.
Yes.
And then the productions house are always left to be the banks. So technically, we have to bankroll all fees going to freelancers within 30 days. Any of your own time, you have to suck it up first. That's painful because if you have 3 of such jobs, you have to bankroll at least 30,000. So for larger projects, I always advocate a tip. If let's say the project is large, then I would say, okay, fine, 50 you can't do it, then we do 30 upon sign off. When I reach a certain milestone, the other 20 comes in, and then so on and so forth. At least I'm secured that if I'm doing work, I'm being paid at the same concurrent time.
Yeah, I mean, just pushing the envelope, right? So if you think about it, IT projects, when you put in an IT project, it could take maybe 8 months, 9 months. Nobody questions when you say you have to pay milestone, you have to put in deposit. I think people don't question.
Yeah.
So then, of course, the question is then why question when a production company comes to the client and say that actually, this is what we need because at the start we need to get all this equipment, crew, rent a space, etc. And I think when clients say, but you should be paying it first. I shouldn't be, paying until the project is done. I don't think that's the right norm. And I think it's up to us to challenge that norm and say, actually, why not I offer you these other options and we work it out. Yeah. So if you cannot afford it, then maybe this is not the option that's suitable for you because you don't have that cash flow to
Yeah.
finance such a project.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah.
10 years ago, I did a feature film, and that feature film went under. So they didn't pay a lot of us. But basically, my friend was a talent agent and he let extras come on set, correct? Extras come on set. But he felt that he had to pay off all the extras. So he paid all the extras, but he never recouped the money. So $10,000, $12,000 he paid out of his own pocket.
ouch.
So I think that's something that, yeah.
So milestone payments for everyone, okay? Everybody should negotiate milestone
Yeah.
payments. So at least you get something out of it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, even for us, if let's say we hire downstream crew work on very close 30 days payment. But if let's say I tell the crew sometimes, hey, can I pay you earlier? Can we give me a better rate? Half the time they'll be like, yeah, sure. But we have to honor our end because we eat, but they have to eat as well.
Everyone has
Yeah,
to eat.
everyone has to eat. And freelance crew is the worst because
Yeah.
you are live off paycheck to paycheck
Yep.
and you're as good as your last job. Right? Yeah. So we understand that, you see. Yeah.
Quick aside for freelancers, if you're an individual freelancer, you're a self-employed professional, you need to do financial planning, right? So you must make sure that just because 1, 2, 3 employees don't pay you, you don't eat grass.
So we're talking about a lot of issues about pricing and things like that. I'm just interested to know, perhaps from Kelvin's point of view, right? When you talk about pricing, what sort of elements should the creative freelancers think about when thinking about how to price themselves? I mean, I talk about elements, it's also specifically like, when you say, oh, my services is a certain rate, right? So how do you come to that rate in the sense that, do you think about the time?
Yes,
Do you think about the number of manpower or the things?
Yeah.
What are the things you think about?
I think it's also number of man hours, or if he or she is part of a team, how much do they contribute to that overall process?
Yeah.
A bit like post production. If there's like a freelance editor, how much time do you need? So it's really a time versus cost issue, lah. Yeah. So, but straight off the bat is that if let's say the freelance creatives consider their calculating their fees, right, and their market value per day rate, it has to be the portfolio first and foremost, lah.
There is this horrific period at the start where you're building your network because so much of our work comes from word of mouth. The people you've worked with who want to work with you again because you've done a good job. So like Kelvin said, people do talk to each other. So if you're starting out, you have to be realistic. You cannot straight away ask for a top rate. Just because you heard someone else, oh, that person gets paid this much. Why do I get? Hello, that person was on Channel News Asia for how many years? This is the same thing. Be realistic.
Totally. Like if you've been in an entry level position for like 2 years and you like there's reviews about you, you're constantly busy. Hey, you're doing something right. The third year, maybe you can, okay, maybe I've decided to step up. and be like maybe midweight or like senior, okay, great. Then sure, then you have experience, and what I would say, right? Like you bring experience, right? And once you bring experience, you bring a added value to the set or to the process, the production process. So then you are determined that, okay, if I charge $150 more, $100 more, like, nobody's gonna say no. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I feel that's another way to look at it. Yeah.
Actually, just want to bring up another point on pricing, right? So actually, when companies look at pay packages for employees, they always think about benefits. They think about, other kind of frills, and that's maybe about 30% of package. But to be quite honest, many freelancers discount that 30%. So they don't price it in and they say, I can't afford to take a holiday. Yes, of course, because you didn't price in the holiday.
And the medical benefits.
Yeah, I can't afford to retire.
Yes.
Because you didn't price in your. Yeah, so I think when the business reaches a steady state, all these really need to be factored in. Otherwise, you can't actually sustain it.
You're living on a job to job kind of.
Yeah, it's really not sustainable.
I think the next thing we should talk about is loading, right? Is that something that you should take into account with?
So if they offer loading, we're very happy. If they don't and we ask for it and they say no, we often just shrink. Because they also have to ask the clients for that loading fee. And that's something we don't always remember. And the client doesn't want to pay. They're like, no, I want it in perpetuity. Then you got to pay for it, man. You got to run this forever.
It's always a hard fight. And we talk about like the image creators, like the directors or like the photographers. I think that loading structure and loading pricing methodology has to evolve also, because clients are no longer paying for that kind of loading. Above the line, everywhere, every bus stop, every whatever, like hoarding or whatever, digital billboards. These days, a lot is digital billboards. Yeah.
Social media. And then I think a lot of times we take social media as an excuse for it being a small fee.
Or below the line.
Yeah.
With you, right?
Yeah. So I always classify as, hey, it's digital? It's digital, right? No, social media. Digital, right? Because it's on the phone, right? How else would you access social media? This is my fight. This is my argument at times. Like digital, right? So whatever amount you're giving me is not enough for the digital encompassing. There we go lah. So loading, yeah. Thank you.
It's a hard fight. It's a hard fight,
it's a
right?
hard fight. It's a daily fight sometimes, yeah.
Is this something that VICPA has a stand on as well?
Yeah, I think that's also where we need to educate service buyers to say actually it's a norm. So what we want to do is to make information like this available on our website, so you can avoid the very awkward situation by actually pointing to an authoritative source and say, hey, actually it's here. Please take a look.
Yes, because I think the difficulty now is this whole private rights are not really, personality rights are not really present in Singapore,
Yes,
right?
they're not.
I guess it's just to put it on the table to say these are the considerations. So in your discussions, do not be alarmed if your production company or your talent actually talks to you about this is perfectly normal.
Yeah. So for the benefits of those who might not really understand, can you share a little bit about what loading is?
Or media loading is actually split into three different considerations. Territory, where it's going to be, duration, and type of media loading. So territory we can say either Singapore, Asia, worldwide. Duration, 6 months, 1 year, 3, 5, perpetual, that word that's always been used. And then last but not least, what type? Is it for TV, free to air? Is it bus stops? Is it digital billboards? Is it newspapers, ATL channels, above the line channels, or below the line channels like brochures, point of sale, standees that float left and right, like that kind of stuff. So basically to determine how much eyeballs these get seen.
Earlier on, we talked about, asking other people as well. So how can you best really understand how much am I worth to the market?
Here's the funny thing. When I first started out, I didn't know. And I had no one to ask. Then as I got older, I realized that the question that you should be asking is not what is my value. The correct question I've discovered is what is your budget, to ask the client. Because if their budget is very low, they have no choice. They're stuck. You quote them whatever amount, they're just like, we can only pay you this much. On the other hand, if your market value is 3 digits, but their budget is 4 to 5 digits, then you've just wasted a wonderful opportunity, because they'll be like, yeah, sure, we'll give you that rate if you quote it to them.
When you compare to other people, how do you like rank yourself in terms of, oh, should I be charging the same as this person?
Hear from the client, ask them, what do you want to see? What do you want to see from my service put forth to you? What do you expect? Show me some references. No, nothing wrong with that. No, that's part of the negotiation, right? Just show me references. If you know you can do that for your rate, fantastic. But then you can say, wow, maybe that would take 5 days of my time. So it's times 5. Happy to give you a package, like 4.5 or 4 days, no problem. You pay me fast, I'll do it for you. If you see something that is really, really out there, you ask the budget, you know you can't do it yourself, then I suggest you're not ready to step up to that tier with that kind of responsibility, which is also very important because if you accept something and you do it wrongly, you mark it up, it's going to be on you.
Yeah.
And I think from a freelancer's point of view, I always advocate them to peer review. You also work with other freelancers, right? So ask them whether you work this company A, company B, company C before. The community has to be as tight as the people hiring them. Like that is really, really very helpful for both ways.
I mean, peer review also requires those peers,
Yes, correct.
right? It
Yeah.
requires that community to want to share with you sometimes. It's sometimes difficult to find that
Network.
community as well, right? Like if you ask people, oh, how much, are you charging kind of a thing, that's a very sensitive topic sometimes.
Yes.
People don't want to share.
I don't think there should be like a determined guideline for how much people should charge, right? But take it's not like the sensitivity, but like take it as like, hey bro, like, chummy elbows, hey bro, how is it going? Stuff like that. I think this kind of like discourse is helpful amongst the freelancer community. Yeah.
So perhaps, Edward, can you share a little bit about how do you go about negotiating your fees?
The thing is, if you know your own unique selling point, then you have something to work from. Otherwise, you're negotiating from a position of shifting sand. You're sinking. If you have a solid position, that's fine. I think there was a client, so let's not talk about which industry it was. They offered me a fee that was lower than what I had gotten for the same job in a previous project. So I spoke to them and then I said, look, I'm coming into this also bringing in the experience of having done that show with you. You know that I show up on time. You know that I turn up for rehearsals prepared. I do shows. I have absolutely no problems when I'm on stage. Things like that on set. So they were like, okay, in the end, they were like, okay, fine. We'll give it to you. So you have to give reasons. If you're going to negotiate, you have to give reasons to them so that they can bring it to their boss. Yeah, because most of the time, you negotiate with someone who has to bring it to someone else who is a decision maker. Give them things to help you with.
The other thing the freelancers will face is something called scope creep. When somebody pays you money, they will say, hey, can you pick up the slack for this one? Hey, can you like drop this in? Can you like make this animate and move? You realize very quickly that it's not your scope of work. And it always happens, scope creep. So you have to be very clear with what your budget and your cost per day is determining what you do. I'm very, very clear about it.
I mean, changes is one thing as well, correct? How many changes can you make for a job? Kind of a thing. That boundary has been set also, and those kind of agreements have been set as well, so that when you come into the job, everyone is clear of the expectations.
Yes.
And you know, like when you can say no.
But to be quite honest, I think sometimes things happen, right? And then that's why my recommendation is actually come for some of the sessions that we organize, VICPA organizers, NTUC Freelancer Self-Employed Unit, we organize, because these are the things that you need to talk about. And it shouldn't be the first time that you go into it. Means that even if you haven't gone into it, after you hear somebody tells you about their experience, actually you should visualize, if I'm encountering such a situation, how am I going to respond? Yeah, you shouldn't be caught by surprise, because if somebody who has been in the industry shares this experience, means that it is something that has happened and you then need to know how to deal with it. It's just all part of business.
So what do you think, each of you think that we can do as an industry to help to maintain sustainable rates for each of us?
If we want to keep this industry as it is, or even further better the industry, then our own people should support our industry, not offshore a lot of things, not put out a lot of things, or be competitive in rates and say, hey, this person is like 40% cheaper than you, why are you not discharging this person? That kind of like, I think it's very important. If you look at the other Southeast Asian countries, right, how they are successful domestically in our similar creative industries and film industry is because they have enough domestic support.
Yep.
I also feel that it's also the biggest service buyers' responsibility to recognize the talent you already have in Singapore.
You know, when we were talking about looking at how we can look to the future, right? Then I think the question is actually what's the social value? So when we bring people together to create things, and then actually there's the value that we create, actually how are we recognizing it from the fabric of society, right? The development, whether it's the people, the development of industry, how we actually mature, right, as a country. I think these are the intrinsic values which are not tangible in procurement.
Yeah.
But in fact, some countries have actually started to quantify it. And in fact, they do put it out and say, well, when you actually put forth a project, right, quantify exactly what do you want to extract. And I think in UK, that's what they do. Yeah. And I think in countries like Korea, they do want to recognize their own, countries' cultural value, and it becomes exportable.
Yeah.
Right. So I think we need to start somewhere. But if we ourselves, even example, freelancers, right, if we say, well, it's okay, I can accept this, and, I don't really want to care what others are doing, I just do on my own, then perhaps that's maybe not the best way to go. But if we actually decide that we are on the same sampan, right, and we agree that, this is something that we need to do as a community, then I would think we can then better define value, and then we can better put forth a position to the government and say, actually, what does it take for us to be sustainable? I think it takes all around, and everybody needs to put in their point of view, whether it's from individuals or as companies or actually as a community. Actually, what does it take for us to be sustainable? And we need to maybe contribute to that big game plan, whether we're going to use technology or how we're going to recognize rights. What does AI play that role, and where should boundaries be drawn? I think we need to come up with the Singapore plan. Yeah.
SG60.
Yeah, SG60. That's
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode, and thank you so much to Jean, Kelvin, as well as Edward for joining us this episode and sharing more about their experiences in the industry. Now, we are interested to listen to your reactions, so if you have any reactions to this episode, or if you want to share a little bit more about what you think we can do to build a sustainable creative industry, please comment below. And if you'd like to find out more about VICPA, please head to the VICPA website. And that's it for now. I'll see you again. Goodbye. Thank you.